Hi Stampers, Rachel here from Rachthestamper.com. Today I'm going to show you how to make this really sweet card. This uses a couple different techniques. We have some embossing. This is watercolor paper for our background, and we have some heat embossing. So I also did just a little bit of kind of fussy cutting to get what I wanted out of this. So this uses several different things. We're going to be using the bird's eye view. Now you could do this branch, add some leaves. This is a case card. They had leaves on their card. Really, really cute. But I was trying to go a little bit more simply. So I also have the Stampin dies, which just cut this out using that instead. Just trying to make it simple on myself, okay? And I also have, hold on, but wait, there's more. I used the Hey There from Charming Sentiments, but you could use a couple other things. I kind of just made this myself. And then one final thing, I used the Tree Rings hybrid folder. This I just used for the embossing portion. This also does have coordinating dies, but I just embossed it, okay? So put this on the side. Oh, and one other thing. See, still one more thing. The basic border dies. So I'm going to show you what I did for this one, but I'm going to show you maybe an alternative. We might try to make it a little bit differently. This is just the cloud line, okay? So lots of products. You might think, this is too much, Rach. Not feeling into this, but it's really not as difficult as you think. All right, so to begin, we're going to begin with our embossing, our watercolor first, because that does need to dry. So I have two pieces. There is a balmy blue base, a balmy blue 4 by 5 1/4 layer. There's an inside white layer. This is a very light colored card, but I kind of felt like it needed something on the inside. So this is your inside layer. And then I have a piece of watercolor paper. This is cut at 2 by 4. This is Stampin' Up! Watercolor paper. I will say this is not my favorite watercolor paper because it doesn't really take the water as well as other watercolor papers. So if you have a favorite, you might want to stick with that. So to begin, I'm going to move my card over. And we're going to start with Balmy Blue. Now I will tell you one thing. I don't have my Balmy Blue re-inker. But if you want to have more ink than this, you can either squeeze or you can actually add ink to it with the re-inker. So if I run out, I might actually sub in, I have Boho Blue. I might sub in Balmy Blue. Okay, so I'm going to begin by doing this. I have a very wide brush. I have a scrap. And on Stampin' Up! Paper, normally on most watercolor paper, there's two sides. There's a toothier side that has a little bit more texture, and there's a smoother side. So I'm aiming to use the smoother side. So I'm going to just take my wide brush. I just have water in a bowl, saturating my brush, and I'm just wiping the sides though, because I don't want it soaked. And I'm just bringing this across. So my paper is wet. That's pretty much it. Then what you're gonna do is I'm gonna just grab a different brush. I'm gonna wet it just to have it wet. And I'm gonna just add a little bit of water to my ink here. Kind of swirl it around a little bit and just kind of drop some color in. It doesn't need to be perfect because you kind of want it to look like clouds. Kind of just fitting it in. Okay, now two things. Ideally, what I did with this, and let me just back up a step here. I just want to wipe this off. Just using just a microfiber cloth just to wipe it off. With this particular brush, these are nicer brushes, so you definitely want to make sure if you have nicer brushes that you do reshape the end, and then you can put this back into the cap just to keep its form. Just depends. So when I did this original card, I did a watercolor across here. So this is one that is dry. Okay, this I started with much larger and then just trimmed it down. Now you could do this one of two ways. We could either do this the same way, Or, and I'm going to just use this dry piece since it's already dry, we're going to die cut the clouds in the background. I'm going to try that this time just to see. So this one you either need to allow to dry, or you can hit it with your heat tool to dry it. I'm going to close this for now, and I'm going to show you the alternative. So instead of cutting the clouds, so what I did with this is I just had a little extra piece of white, and I went ahead and I die cut just like so. I ended up with some clouds, and then I kind of hand trimmed them underneath. But instead of doing that, what we're going to do is we're going to just die cut this, and we're going to use it however it flows in the background, but we're going to trim it down. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, just to be on the safe side, I'm going to trim this down to 4. Here's my little trimmer. Let's see if I can do that with this. So first off, we want to trim it down to 2. Just going to flip it to slide it under. By 4. Okay, so 2 by 4. Then I'm going to just line this up kind of like so, and I'm going to run this through the die cut machine. And I'm going to put it kind of diagonal, because you don't want any straight pressure going across this, because it puts a lot of pressure on the die. So I'm just turning it just slightly askew, running this through. Now, when you do this, one thing you have to remember is you're going to end up with a little bit of a smaller piece. So what you can do is you can kind of layer these 2 pieces together if you wanted. Now I know this is opposite, or you could kind of piece them back like so and have one piece be bigger than the other. I think that's what we're going to do for this one. So we'll see which one we end up liking better. While I have it out, I'm going to run my 4 by 5 1/4 panel through this embossing folder, and tending to be what I do is I find the straight edge and just line it on the bottom. That way I know it's at least straight. So this is going to go through an embossing folder. Okay, so that is our embossed layer. And then we're going to have this piece here. Okay, so there's that. And then finally, we're going to do, oh, we have one more thing. We're going to die cut, and I did die cut this just from a piece of watercolor paper, but you don't really necessarily have to. So I'm just going to use a piece of scrap paper. This is for the branch. Then one more, we actually have our bird. So here's our branch. I'll show you that. Now for the branch, what I did was I just used my watercolor brush. You could also use a Wink of Stella brush, but I just filled in the color. So I'll tell you that in a minute. In the meantime, we're going to do one more thing, and I am doing this on watercolor paper. So I'm going to try. So you can see I already did this here, and it just didn't turn out quite as nicely as I wanted to. So we're doing 2 things for this. Number 1, I forgot to pull this down. You want to grab your embossing buddy. If you have black embossing powder, it'll be even better. But I must have given mine away because I don't know where it is. So I need to put that down and order it. So I'm actually going to use clear embossing powder, but I'm going to use black ink. Now this VersaFine ink takes a much longer time to dry, so I'm going to use that. But you ideally want to use, and I do need my glasses and my bird. I ideally want to use black embossing powder. It will make it immensely easier, let's put it that way. But when you emboss, you want to make sure you sprinkle your powder quickly. So that's why I have everything ready. So I have my coffee filter and my clear embossing powder. I'm just going to loosen it. And I'm going to stamp my bird. And I'm going to stamp my glasses. And I'm going to move this over and dump my powder. Now the reason I use watercolor paper for this is because I want to be able to add color more as a gradient like I did here. Okay, so you can see it's kind of dusty looking. That's what you want. I'm just gonna give it a hard flick. I'm gonna put this back. Close this up. And then you're going to heat this to set it. Okay, so I have my heat tool. I'm gonna go ahead and heat this up by turning it on off camera. And you're going to heat this until it's shining. Shiny. You know, allow that to cool for a minute. All right, in the meantime, I'm going to just clean these few stamps off. And I'm going to tell you how I did my branch. Here it is. So with the branch, I just used a little bit of wild wheat, a little bit of espresso. So I kind of just went in. I have my little puddle there. And I'm going to just use my tip here. It doesn't have any water in it. I'm just going to wet it. And just wet this just a little bit. And I kind of just brought a little bit of color to the branch. Not a lot, because remember, this is just regular paper. Now, if you did choose watercolor paper, you can use as much as you want. And then same with the espresso. Ooh, whoops, I forgot that one's broken. I need to get a new one of those as well. These are really, really old pads, as you can see. They're very well loved and used. Now, you do not need a lot of espresso. That's going to be a lot. So I'm kind of trying to dab it off. And just adding a little bit. Kind of more like adding your detail to your branch. Really doesn't need to be super specific, as long as you kind of feel like it looks tree-esque. Just a few. Just picked up a couple little dark splotches so I could just add a little bit of detail. All right, that looks good. I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to give my brush a good rinse. The great thing about these watercolor brushes is you can use them filled with water, or you can just dip them. Either way is fine. Same thing again. I don't know if you can see that there's a few stray hairs here. So what you can do is just grab your snips. Just give them a little haircut so you don't kind of ruin your projects in the meantime. But otherwise, you kind of just reshape them and then recap them, and then they're perfectly good. And in case you've ever popped this out, one of my little nibs here is broken. You kind of just slide them in sideways. Yeah, I definitely need to get a new one of these. This one has seen its day. This also happened with my green. The thing is, though, it's so well inked. I really hate to get rid of it. Just clean my fingers. All right, now we're going to add in the color to our bird. So kind of same thing. You want to start with your lightest first. We're going to go back to our boho blue. And I capped this, but I actually need to use it again. Okay, we're going to just get a little bit. And we're going to add it to the outsides of the glasses so it kind of blends in. Doesn't have to be a lot. Blends into the sky. Okay, close that up. And then I kind of started first with the wild wheat again. So same thing, just a little bit of wild wheat. I kind of went a little darker in the center, but a little bit darker at the top, lighter at the bottom. Same thing, if you add a little bit of water to this, it will spread a little bit easier, just like so. I'm going to add a little bit more, so I'm going to dip from the edge here. Kind of add a little bit here where the shaded areas would be. This would be another great time with your re-inker if you need to add some color to it. That's another idea. I'm also going to pull my pebbled path and do the wings. So just kind of spreading that around. Remember, we are going to fussy cut this, so if that's not your favorite thing, maybe you have a scan and cut or something you can use. A little darker on the edges and a little bit on the belly. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit up here. And then I'm going to close this and I'm going to go back to my pebbled, or I'm sorry, my wheat, and just go a little bit lighter. Kind of like a little mix of the colors there. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit darker right here in the front. Okay, that looks pretty good. So not exact, and it won't be exact. They're all going to be different because that's kind of the beauty of watercoloring. So again, I just cleaned off my brush, smooth out the tip, put it back on, close up all of my ink pads, and I think that is pretty much it. Yes, because we're piecing the rest of it together. So we do need to cut this out. So I'm going to just go around. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not going to get all these little hairs. I'm just doing my best. Oh, forgot about the sentiment. That's the only other thing I forgot. Come down to the feet, and I'm going to just go straight across the feet. I'm going to go up and in best I can. Again, not trying to win any contests here. You want to move the paper. Ooh, almost lost that foot there. Move the paper. The good part about watercolor paper, it's a little bit thicker, so it is definitely more forgiving. This is still damp, so I'm trying my best not to touch it, but you know, I'm bound to do something. Come in here. And just with the tip of your scissors, whoop, almost lost a foot. And also, no shame if you have a footless bird, because they don't have to have their feet sticking out, so don't feel like you have to do that. So the other thing I totally forgot, this is one thing I spaced on. I want to, one more time with this, and I'm just going to show you kind of what I did, is because again, this is just regular white paper or white cardstock. I'm going to add a little bit of water, and I'm kind of just doing a brush across. That's good, just like that. Don't need any more. And then I added with the pecan pie marker, but I did that after the fact. So I'm going to just hit this really quickly with my heat tool. And sentiment. So there is another bird set, which is absolutely adorable. This is a case card. I cannot remember who it's from, but I thought it was adorable. So we'll just do hello for this one. And that is from Happy Labels. The other one was from Charming Sentiments. And a stamp. Same thing. We're going to use the VersaFine. This is great for pigment. Or for detailed, I should say, detailed stamps. Perfect. Doesn't matter if it is or isn't square, because we're going to hand cut it out. Okay, so then I'm going to just take my larger scissors, and I'm kind of just starting bigger because you can go smaller, but you can't add it back. Looks good. So those were the larger just to get it in. And then I kind of just grabbed it. I kind of wanted this to be like, as if you had like an old old-timey, like a sign that you would make maybe for your playhouse or something, if you can imagine, from the old days. So there's that. And then I took the brush tip of my pecan pie and I kind of just went over the edge of it. You could also do this with your watercolor brush again, if you want it a little bit darker. And so there's that. Or you could also add a little bit with your espresso. I'm going to show you what I mean. So I'm just going to grab my brush again. I kind of just added a little bit of like I just wanted it to look like a wooden sign. That's cool. Okay, we're going to leave it like that. I don't want to do too much. All right, and now I'm going to just rinse this out finally one more time. Again, I'm just smoothing the edges, reshaping it with my finger, which if you are familiar with using any sort of a watercolor brush, you know that's what you're supposed to do. You always want to reshape it when you're done. All right, so now we're going to just assemble. Let's see. Let me get these scraps out of the way. And I'm going to turn this over in case I need any gluing fingers. So this. I'll keep this just in case. Here's our card. And I have, where's my other part? Put these on the side. Get rid of as much as possible. Okay. All right, so we're going to begin by folding our card base. It's already scored. Move these things over just for a minute. Oops. Okay, so liquid glue. Put this down. All right, we're going to piece this in. Remember, we're kind of putting this in the background. So it isn't going to match exactly, but we're kind of okay with that. This needs a little bit more of a press. When you're using watercolor paper, you also do need a good amount of grip to it, or glue to make it grip. Maybe that's a better way to say it. That's going to look perfect. You can either put this down or you can put it down with dimensionals, but we're going to put a good amount of dimensionals, so I'm going to just put this straight down. Okay. I'm going to pop a cough drop because I still have this bronchitis going on. This is on week 3. We're going to put some glue, just a little bit here, and then just a little teeny bit here. Hooking this in. Now, 2 things. I forgot, actually. 3 things. I did wrap this around, but you don't have to. It's kind of up to you. Holy moly, I lost my... Well, nuts. I lost my ribbon. I don't know where it went. So we're going to actually add this one. We're going to just add with marker. So maybe you don't have string. You can do this. Just give it a little curve at the top so it looks like it goes around. Okay. We're going to put 2 dimensionals. This will be for our sentiment. I'm trying to watch. I know I have inky fingers here. And remember, we got rid of the cloud in the background because we did the die cut. So we'll see which one we like better. I'm going to put some dimensionals on the back of my bird. And one other thing you might want to add just to the glasses is just a tiny touch of Wink of Stella, just to give a little bit of a reflective shimmer. Okay. I don't know if I did that on this one. No, I didn't. So you want to be careful though, because this will reactivate the ink. So kind of stick with one color. Give it a little wipe and then go to the blue. Do one on this one too. Now, one other thing you notice, I did see this originally, there was a little bit of gray in the clouds, but I don't really know which one I prefer. Let me just move some of this stuff out of the way, and you tell me which one you think you like better. This one is definitely easier because you are only, oops, I stuffed my glue to dry on there. You're only using the one piece with the background, but do you have one you prefer? Again, we just cut this piece in half and we kind of layered them together. So that is definitely an easy, kind of a cheat to be able to do it, but you could also do it the other way. So it kind of just depends on which one you prefer. So let me know in the comments, number 1 or number 2. I kind of like both of them for different ways. And again, they are colored differently. This one I kind of had to emboss or stamp twice, so it's a little bit thicker with the lines versus this where it has a little bit truer of the lines. So let me know in the comments which one you prefer. Thank you so much for taking time to watch this with me today. I hope you've learned something new. If you have any questions about any of the products that I used, if you'd like to purchase the products, you can hit my online store directly. I will put a link below. I am definitely a little bit behind with back to school and whatnot with posting the blog post links. However, all of the links to get what you would use aside from the brushes and I think that was it, just the brushes, will be in my shop or my links below. And I can go on and pick out some Amazon brushes that are kind of equivalent to these. I actually bought these quite some time ago. This is a Zen brush. I bought this because Christina Werner uses these. Well, at least she did at the time, and I thought they were amazingly cool. So these are both Zen brushes. So this is a 1-inch flat brush, and then this is a number 8. And they're great kind of basic brushes because you can do a lot of watercoloring with this. And this is great if you want to do like a watercolor wash and then drop in color for your background. But you can see with these, and even with this one that we did, all of your clouds are going to always look different. That's one of the coolest parts about watercoloring. So you have different things that we did. This was kind of my first try. And this one I feel like has a little bit more of a puffy cloud look if you notice the clouds. The other thing you could do too is before you put this down, you could outline this with your brush if you wanted to kind of have a little bit more of a distinction between the front and the back clouds. But I like both of them. I really can't say that I would pick one over the other. I think this one was a little bit easier because you didn't have to fussy cut the bottom of the clouds. However, we do have some cloud dies available. So if that's something that maybe is more up your alley, maybe that's the route you could go. So thank you so much for watching. Before you go, make sure that you give me a thumbs up on this, leave a comment, share this with someone. And if you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel and just make sure you turn the bell on for notifications. So when I put a new video on, you'll find it. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great day.